Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. So now we're in chapter 11 of the 11th canto, and Krishna has been describing the paths of bhakti. He's been describing how to worship him, where to go, the qualities of and the practices we should engage in to develop our bhakti. And we're going to continue in this section where Krishna is going to explain where we can worship him and how to worship him in each of these different things in life. Now, if you want to watch the rest of the Uddhava-gita course, this is already the 47th class. There's 46 classes already in this course. It's quite a complete, intense course of the Uddhava-gita. Make sure you become a member of this channel, and the instructions are here in the description of the video. So let's get started. We're on the 11th canto, 11th chapter, starting now with verse 42. So Krishna continues, O saintly Uddhava, please know that you may worship me in the sun, fire, brahmanas, cow, Vaishnavas, sky, wind, water, earth, individual soul, and all living entities. Wow, it's quite a list. Let's read the purport. Unless one understands that Lord Krishna is all-pervading and that everything is resting within the Lord, one's Krishna consciousness is third class and materialistic. What does that mean? A third class, this isn't a made-up term. Third class devotee is that devotee who only sees Krishna in the deity form in the temple. So he only recognizes God in the temple, in the deity form, in the altar. And he doesn't see Krishna everywhere else. So there's like, oh, Krishna, then he's not in the temple, he forgets about it. That's a materialistic devotee. Why? Because, he needs the materialistic form, the deity form. He needs that materialistic support for his vision. Now, first-class devotee is that who sees Krishna everywhere, like Krishna is describing in this verse. If you see Krishna everywhere, and especially Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you see him in every living entity, so whenever you meet any, not just humans of course, any living entity, and you see, you perceive, the word perceive, see, you perceive the presence of God, you perceive Krishna within that body. Because as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, within every body, within every living entity, be it a plant body, a human body, bird body, within every body, there are two presences. There's the presence of the soul and the super soul, the individual soul and Krishna. So that's a first-class devotee. It is clearly stated in all Vedic literatures that the supreme absolute truth is the source of everything. Everything is within him, and he is within everything. To avoid a materialistic conception of Lord Krishna, one should not think that the Lord exists only in a particular time and place. Rather, one should understand that he exists at all times and in all places, and that one may search for and find Lord Krishna within all things. The word puja padhani indicates that Lord Krishna is all-pervading. But this does not mean that all things are Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna speaks this verse to clarify his supremacy as the all-pervading personality of Godhead and to show the path of complete self-realization. Verse 43, 44, and 45. Now, he's going to explain how to do it within these things. My dear Uddhava, one should worship me within the sun by chanting selected Vedic mantras. For example, the Gayatri mantra. And by performing worship and offering obeisances. One may worship me within fire by offering oblations of ghee. And one may worship me among the brahmanas by respectfully receiving them as guests, even when uninvited. So with the sun, people would have, why is Krishna saying this? This is 5,000 years ago. This is a culture where people would regularly worship the sun. For example, the famous Gayatri verse is a connection to the sun and seeing the divine within the light of the sun. So you can worship with, that's why he starts by saying selected Vedic mantras. And people would worship the sun. So you could worship the sun, but worship Krishna within the sun. Similarly, the fire, as you know, traditionally as well, you'd have a fire. It's a fire even to this day, very common. It's called a fire sacrifice, Agnihotra. You have this fire sacrifice. So within the fire, you build this sacrificial fire. And what do you offer? This is very classic. You offer ghee. You offer ghee, which is, if you don't know, ghee is the oil of the butter. Is when you heat the butter and you separate the stuff in the butter and you're just left with the oil of the butter. So you offer ghee to the fire. So that's one way to, and you can do that not by worshipping the fire, you're worshipping Krishna. So you can do you see people doing this to this day. You can do Agnihotras for Krishna, where you worship Krishna through the fire, through the ceremony, through the ritual of the fire ceremony. And one may worship among the brahmanas. This one's really easy. How do you worship Krishna among the brahmanas? By respecting them and by receiving them as guests even when uninvited. So that's a way to worship Krishna in brahmanas, by taking special care of them. I can be worshipped within the cows by offerings of grass and other suitable grains and paraphernalia for their pleasure and health of the cows. So that's another easy thing. So cows, if you happen to live within reach of well cared for cows, then that's one way to worship Krishna, through cows. So you'd have cow herders like Krishna's. When he was a child, of course, he knows all about cows because he lived in Vrindavan, in the whole community of cow herders, and so that's how you worship Krishna, through the cow, by taking care of the cow with nice grass and grains and whatever else the cow needs to be healthy and happy. So this is simple stuff, isn't it? It's just like, it's a very beautiful spiritual way to deal with life, where you're worshiping Krishna, but not just in the temple, not just with an altar, but you're worshiping God in life, in all the things of life. And one may worship me within the Vaishnavas, the devotees of God, by offering loving friendship to them and honoring them in all respects. So of course, a great way to worship Krishna is by just being nice and kind and friendly and respectful to the devotees of God, in a simple, obvious manner. Through steady meditation, I am worshipped within the inner space of the heart and within the air. I can be worshipped by knowledge that prana, the life air, is the chief among elements. So you can worship the inner space of the heart. You can meditate. As a common yogic meditation you will see in the Bhagavatam, is to meditate and see the form of Paramatma within the heart. Because I said, in every living being there is Paramatma and Atma. There's Krishna and the individual soul. So a common technique of yogis would be to meditate on seeing that form of Paramatma, that localized, fully complete form of God within you. So that's one way of doing it. And he says you can worship Krishna in the air by knowledge. So another way of worshiping is through knowledge. It's just by knowing. This is interesting, make this connection that knowing is a form of worship. So by knowing that prana, the life air, is the chief among elements. So understanding prana. Prana, of course, is a word that's not so well understood. Prana just doesn't mean breath. It really means energy. It's a universal energy. And prana, the stuff we're breathing in and out, that's just an aspect, a more obvious aspect of this universal energy that is everywhere. So prana, like that. I am worshipped within water by offering of water itself, along with other elements such as flowers and tulasi leaves. So you can worship water with water. You might have seen these images of people in the Ganges, for example. You go into a sacred river, and what do you offer the sacred river? You can offer lamps and flowers, but normally what people do is they will just go into the river and very, devotionally, they would get some water from the river and offer that water back to the river. So you're offering the water with the water itself. So here we see, I am worshipped within water by offerings of water itself, along with other elements such as flowers and tulasi leaves. And one may worship me within the earth by proper application of confidential seed mantras. So you can use mantras to worship Krishna within the earth. This is great, isn't it? This is such a universal approach Krishna is giving. It's such a wide concept, isn't it? You can worship Krishna just so easily, just around you in nature. I mean, we're talking about the sun, the sky, water, earth, brahmanas, Vaishnavas, cows. It's just everywhere. That's Krishna consciousness. This is true yoga, spirituality, where you're worshiping God everywhere, through everything you can see. Not that he's dissolved in anything, but you're seeing actual Krishna directly through these things. You're worshiping Krishna. Again, Krishna isn't being, dissolved into all these things, into some, without form, just some. No, the actual complete Krishna who is here speaking these very words, you worship him through all these different things. One may worship me within the individual living entity by offering food and other enjoyable substances. And one may worship me within all living entities by seeing the super soul within all of them, thus maintaining equal vision. So very important end to this paragraph here. So, one may worship me within the individual living entity by offering food and other enjoyable substances. So, just being kind to any living entity. So, if you have a dog, you meet somebody in the street, by just being kind to people, by taking care of them, offering food and other enjoyable substances. So, just being kind, taking care of any living entity. So you water your plants. You feed your dog. You give gifts and food and whatever, clothing to people. You can worship Krishna through that. How beautiful is that? What a beautiful concept. We're not talking about the religious person who is just ignoring the world and stuck in his little temple or church or something. No, this is out here. This is connecting life, because life is spiritual, connecting everything, because everything is from Krishna. Everyone is from Krishna. Really having this connection without falling into a monistic, Advaita aspect of, oh, God is formless and all I have for God is these people and these things, because there actually isn't God. No, there is God. Krishna is there. He's right here speaking these verses. But you can connect him through the all, through everything, through everyone, through every living entity. How beautiful is that? So when of course you can do these things and not worship Krishna. You can take care of living entities and not be worshiping Krishna because you didn't make the connection. But what Krishna is saying is you can do those same things, but you can worship me through those acts. So So you can elevate your consciousness to the platform of devotion, to the platform of transcendental realization and vision, so that you're doing it. And then he says in the end, and by seeing me, when we're worshiping within all living entities, by seeing. So the same verb is used here, is used in Bhagavad Gita, by seeing the super soul within all of them, thus maintaining equal vision. This is exactly what Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita. This is a common theme, that the fact that you can see, again, perceive, see, that you can see or perceive the presence of God, that you can see Krishna within all living entities. What does that do? How does that affect you? It affects you that you now maintain equal vision. What does that mean? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that a person who sees equally, the dog, the elephant, the Brahmana, or the dog eater. So that they thought dogs were a bit worthless before. I know we kind of worship dogs now, but before it was kind of like a silly animal. So dog, like a lower animal. Elephant, very noble elephant. Elephants were like the Rolls Royces of animals. Only like the very rich could have one. So like the topmost animal, the lowest animal, the dog, kind of useless. The dog they thought like that is like kind of a silly, useless thing. Or the topmost elephant, like an elephant, so important. So, and then the topmost Brahmana, or the dog eater, which is the lowest kind of human. So the person who can see all those equally has equal vision, samadarshana. And he's doing it. How does he have equal vision? Because he can see God in all of them. In that sense, not that he will invite, the dog, like everybody to his birthday party or something. Not in that sense, but in the sense that you can see that they're all equal living entities. You can see the spiritual side, which makes everyone the same. It's just the body's different, so it doesn't really matter what's going on. So that's a way to worship Krishna. Isn't that beautiful? So you can literally worship Krishna. Krishna is still telling you can worship him in every living entity just by seeing him in every living entity, and thus maintaining equal vision. What a beautiful way to worship God. Very, very amazing. Very important section. This really establishes the huge difference between spiritual and religion. Spiritual life, religious life. This is this is spiritual. Your whole life, everyone, everything, you're connecting everything constantly to Krishna. You're worshiping Krishna through life. Very important. Purport. Significantly, the Lord emphasizes in these verses that one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded within all living beings. It is not recommended that one accept any material or spiritual object other than the Lord as supreme. By maintaining steady consciousness of the Lord in his all-pervading feature, one can remain in a worshipful mood 24 hours a day. And this is the idea, remain in a worshipful mood 24 hours a day. That is the idea, that you're maintaining this state of devotion, feeling of bhakti, the loving connection. You're maintaining that. That is the whole point of bhakti yoga. And thus, one will naturally try to engage all material and spiritual elements in the loving service of Lord Krishna. If because of ignorance one forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one may become inclined to worship powerful material phenomena independent of the Supreme Lord, or one may foolishly consider oneself to be the Supreme. One should remain sane and accept the worshipful presence of the Supreme Lord within everything. Very nice. Verse 46. Thus, in the previously mentioned places of worship, and according to the processes I have described, one should meditate on my peaceful, transcendental form with 4 arms, holding a conch shell, sudarshana disc, club, and lotus flower. In this way, one should worship me with fixed attention. So now Krishna is explaining that in this case, he's suggesting that he be worshipped not in his Krishna form, but in his four-armed form, his super soul form, the form of the super soul, which is peaceful, transcendental form with 4 arms holding conch shell, Sudarshana disc, the club, and the lotus flower. And of course, we should worship him with fixed attention. Purport. The Lord has previously explained that he appears in different transcendental forms to his pure devotees so that they may unlimitedly increase their love of Godhead. Here is given a general description of the four-armed narayana form, which pervades the material world as Supersoul or Paramatma. The pure devotees, however, do not meditate upon the Lord within the heart, but rather render active service to a specific form of the Lord within the heart of the Lord, such as Rama or Krishna, and thus perfect their realization of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Lord, who engages in transcendental pastimes with his devotees in the spiritual world. So the Krishna Bhaktas, they won't worship Krishna. They don't focus their mind on the four-armed Narayana form of Lord, but they actually focus their mind directly on the Shyama Sundar, beautiful form of Krishna, the Krishna who is speaking these very words. So they worship Krishna directly because they're developing their connection with a specific Bhagavan form of God. In the case, Krishna, Radha Krishna for the Vaishnava, for the Krishna Bhaktas. So it's focusing and in the mood, and of course in an even more advanced stage of bhakti, you're worshipping Krishna, you're seeing Krishna, but you're seeing Krishna specifically in the mood of Vrindavan. That's the tradition we get from the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So we're focused specifically on Vrindavan, of not the Krishna Dwaraka, not the Krishna who's exactly the Dwaraka Krishna who's speaking, but Krishna in the mood of Vrindavan. So it's very specific, it's not a generic worship of God. And that specific kind of bhakti directs your mind to that specific type of engagement, a specific relationship, a specific rasa that you're developing with Krishna. But that's, going a bit too further ahead now. But the point is, we do worship Krishna directly in his two-armed form and not in his Narayana form. That's how we see Krishna in everyone and everything, in the fire, in the sky, in the earth, everywhere. Yet, even within the material world, one can spiritualize one's existence by seeing the Supreme Lord within everything and worshiping him by constant meditation. As mentioned in the previous verses, one should also go to the temple and specifically worship the deity and participate in spiritual festivals, because Krishna had said that before, right? He had mentioned the practices of going to festivals, organizing festivals, and seeing the deity form. So he'd mentioned those things as well. So we see this wide range of possibilities Krishna is leaving for us. Wide range. Look, you don't have a temple. That's fine. You have air, you have sky, you have earth, you have your own self, you have other living. Then you can worship me perfectly. Oh, I don't have a temple. You don't need a temple. You just need your own presence, your own heart. You have your own heart, so I'm there. You can worship me there. Like I tell my students, look, this is your temple. This is the most important temple right here. This is a temple of God. Krishna is right here with you. And then you live somewhere, your house, that's another temple of God. You can make that a temple. You don't need to go to a separate building that's dedicated to be a temple. That's you can do that. It's nice. It's when Krishna says, a festival, yeah, sure, it's nice. You don't have to though. It's optional. So Krishna gives all these options of being laid out. So you can always remain connected in bhakti, which is what really matters. Temple worship has been repeatedly emphasized by the Lord himself. The word samahati in this verse indicates samadhi. If one carefully worships the deity or hears in chants about the pastimes of Lord Krishna, one is certainly in samadhi. By worshiping and glorifying the Lord 24 hours a day, one becomes a liberated soul and gradually rises completely beyond the influence of the material creation. The living entity is called Atma, or eternal soul, because of his relationship with the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By worshiping the Lord, our eternal nature revives, and we increase our enthusiasm and steadiness in devotional service. And as we do that, material existence fades away. Verse 47. One who has executed sacrificial performances and pious works for my satisfaction, and who thus worships me with fixed attention, obtains unflinching devotional service unto me. By the excellent quality of his service, such a worshipper obtains realized knowledge of me. So, very important, this sequence. So, you are doing things. You're doing the, sacrificial work. You're doing pious works. You're acting. What for? What's your goal? For the satisfaction of Krishna. So that's, you're trying to please God. And Krishna's given all these options. You can do it, sacrificial, and he said he could worship you in the fire, so sacrificial, like, setting of a fire sacrifice. He said the Vedic mud, so you can do that, or in water, or in the temple, in the festival, whatever. And you said, like, I've just given you all these options, like whatever works for you. I'm everywhere, so you can't get it wrong. So you're doing something, you're acting, you're trying to please God somehow. Okay, so what happens when you do that? So when you do that, and then you're doing that, of course, with fixed attention. So it's all about attention. Where is attention? Attention is in your mind. It's not about just your body. It's not a ritual. It's not about just, doing the necessary. It's like, okay, is this like, whatever. No. Fixed attention. So your mind is connected. This is yoga. Your mind is connected. So you're doing that. You're worshiping. What happens? Two things happen. One, you get bhakti. That's how you get bhakti. And then you use that bhakti to get more bhakti. So for one thing is that bhakti is generated by the effort in pleasing Krishna, and then that is bhakti. And then you get more bhakti from that. So you get more bhakti from practicing bhakti. So first thing, you get unflinching bhakti. So if you keep doing that, Krishna says, you'll get unflinching bhakti. So eventually you get to the point where your bhakti is solid. It's not like something you remember during Janmashtami and then you kind of forget about it and somebody reminds you, oh yeah, Krishna, right. Forgot about Krishna. Right, Krishna. No, so it's unflinching bhakti. Steady, rock solid, all the time bhakti. So you get that kind of first class bhakti. And then, what else do you get? By that quality of bhakti, this is exactly what Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita. This is a very interesting concept. From that bhakti, what do you get? You get knowledge of me, matsmriti. You remember me constantly. Because of that bhakti, then you get, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, jnana yoga. You get the jnana by which you can come to me, he says in Bhagavad-gita. So by bhakti, you get the knowledge, the realization of how to get to him, and then you get more, and then you get bhakti. It's this process of devotion and knowledge. Devotion and remembrance. So you're getting this process of From devotion, you get the knowledge, and from the knowledge, you get the devotion. From the devotion, you get the knowledge. It's this virtuous cycle which takes you straight to Krishna. So, very important concept. Same thing he explains in Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavad-gita says, by always talking about me, by enlightening one another, they get bhakti, and I remove all the darkness from their hearts. So, same concept. Krishna will give you knowledge and devotion because of your devotion and your knowledge. You see, it just kind of builds upon each other. Purport. The word Ishtapurtena here, which means sacrificial performances and pious works, does not indicate deviation from the pure devotional service of the Lord. Lord Krishna or Vishnu is called Yagya, that's another name of God, Yagya, or the Lord of Sacrifice. And in Bhagavad-gita 5.29, Lord Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasan. I am the actual enjoyer of all Yagya, of all sacrifice. The highest sacrifice is to chant the holy names of the Lord. And by taking shelter of the Lord's names, one will acquire unflinching devotion and realize knowledge of the absolute truth. A realized devotee is very attentive in his devotional service, taking it as his life and soul. He keeps himself fit for devotional service by constantly worshipping and glorifying the lotus feet of the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such Harinam Kirtan and Guru Puja are the only practical methods by which one can achieve pure devotional service. When Hari Kirtana is expanded, it is called Krishna Sankirtana. One should not dry up by performing unauthorized austerities or sacrifices. Rather, one should engage all enthusiasm in the great sacrifice of Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which enables one to easily achieve the highest perfection of human life. So the idea then is to spread, glorify the Lord, chant His names, share His teachings. And today it's very easy. You can do Krishna Sankirtan just by sharing a video like this, by inviting people to join this kind of course, or my other courses like Bhagavad-gita. Just getting people connected with Krishna. That is Sankirtan. So you can do Krishna Sankirtan by bringing people to this channel, to this course, to my other courses. Get people reading Bhagavad-gita. Of course, do it yourself. But spread this knowledge, spread this light. The world desperately needs this kind of knowledge, right? In this world of religious hatred and material depression and just people suffering and so much suffering, so many people lost, frustrated. They need this knowledge, this beautiful spiritual yogic knowledge for everyone, open to everyone. Doesn't require any material qualification. You have to just want it. The only qualification is you just want it, just go for it, and you can get it. So that's it for today. May the rest of your day, may you have lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.